Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final round commentary of the National Middle School Chess Championship that took place over this past 3 days in Round Rock, Texas. It's always a pleasure to be your host. I'm WGM Sabina Foisor. Super thankful to US Chess for having me. Bring in the action every day for you. I hope you've enjoyed the commentary so far and are looking forward to calling in the action for the final round. That's going to let us know who the crowned winners will be. This tournament would not be possible without a lot of behind the scenes work from US Chess staff, volunteers, tournament directors, and of course a lot of work from the coaches, players, and parents, and the support. The sponsorships are also always helpful too. So big thanks to Silver Knights, GT Anywhere, and Invisalign for making this tournament possible. As I've already gotten you accustomed to, I like to go over one of my favorite moments from the previous round, and in the championship section, it is International Master Brian and Ming Lin, who is leading the tournament with 6 out of 6 after a beautiful win in the previous round. He is the sole leader with 100% in the championship section, and I figured what better way to start this video than go over his final round win. I found that to be quite an interesting game overall, and he finishes it off with a beautiful sacrifice that if you missed earlier in my commentary, well, hopefully you're going to enjoy now. So he was paired with the black pieces against Ricard Kandikayala, another player who at the time had 5 out of 5, so both of them were leaders going into round 6 with 100%. Brian started off with the Sicilian, and they went for this 4 knights variation. There are various ways that black can proceed here, and actually they can play the move d6 and kind of transpose to other kind of famous Sicilian systems. But Brian ended up going for bishop c5. Bishop b4 is a nice alternative, and both of these moves actually allow this knight d6 check. White didn't choose to do that, but for those of you who are not familiar with this idea, basically when knight d6 is played, you do not want to capture the knight, because once you do, white is going to make it a point to keep a piece on d6 to make it difficult for black to finish off the development. And so generally, once this check is given, black plays king e7 to push the knight away, and when white attempts defending it, black is very resourceful, plays e5, blocks in the defense to the knight, knight f5 check, king f8, and though this position may be a little bit scary for some, it is something from which black ends up getting a pretty good play that king is relatively safe, and eventually these two pieces will be pushed back, and white will lose a little bit of the initiative while black will build up a pretty solid development. In the actual game, white continued with bishop f4, castle, and bishop c7. This is a way of trying to build some initiative, but also still get control over d6 in a different fashion this way, of course, after black has castled. So we have no other choice but to recapture, queen takes d6, and here Brian chose to play the move queen to d8. Retreating with the queen actually helps black to find the regrouping maneuvers. So generally the queen avoids to be traded, and then black will eventually push white's queen away and then find the right moment to push the d-pawn. And this is kind of how the game continued too. White castle long, and now a6 first, chasing the knight away, and then knight e7. I'm sure Brian was looking to find the right kind of complications in this game in order to be able to eventually outplay his opponent slowly that seems to be a kind of style of play that he has accustomed us with. I like how he's always taking care of his pieces throughout this entire tournament. The games have shown a really good find with the placement of pieces, really good arrangement, and even when the positions were relatively balanced, he seemed to find the right way to move forward and not wait for his opponent to make a mistake, but rather improve every step of the way. And even if it took longer, that was okay because it was, a small step to a bigger improvement. And this is something that a lot of us have to learn from. So he goes for 97. Temporarily, the knight doesn't look so good there. And of course, like generally, when you see a knight coming to the center, you want to put yours in the center too or trade it off. But in this case, we're going away because we want to actually be the ones pushing white back. And so keeping more pieces on the board will be useful for that. And white plays a4. Now, personally, I was surprised by this move because white has chosen to castle long, and generally when you castle long, you don't want to make pawn pushes on that side of the board. It's going to eventually help the opponent open the position, and in the game, that actually happened. I feel that moves like f3 or h4 would have been more in white's favor because it wouldn't help black's potential attack later on. So after a4, Brian goes for 98, the queen retreats, and rook b8. Didn't rush with d6 or d5, but rather made sure that the b pawn would be able to be pushed for the further development of the pieces. Now, I found this to be quite an interesting idea, and while analyzing, I was thinking what would have happened had white chosen to actually grab the pawn here, because it does seem it's the first thing we should consider, right? What happens if they take our pawn? But black gets to build a little bit the initiative with bishop a6. Maybe the queen would eventually find its way there, knight c7. And with black not having touched anything around his king, but white having gotten rid of all of black's pawns, I think it's safe to say that black has sufficient compensation for the pawn and will eventually get it back. Maybe, considering how the game went, maybe white could have actually considered taking, but that didn't happen. The play for white was relatively natural until this moment. h4, knight a6, the queen had to go away. Black builds up the attack as usual, bringing in the queen to check on the a file, and now d5, the typical breakthrough that black wants to have, and as the bar also shows, black seems to have equalized here with d5 being played, and this is normal. Now, what happened from here on was a shift from a relatively balanced position where both players would have ways to build up the attack towards the opponent's king. Now, white made a move after which it was clear that it was black who's going to have more, like an easier idea to build the pressure. In my opinion, and after a little bit of analyzing this position, white should have gone for this move h5, pretend that they do not care about this break in the center, and should black consider capturing, white could pursue this attack with h6. After all, we're dealing with opposites like castling, and we don't have anything open towards black's king. The queen is the only piece that actually puts pressure, with the knight having had to retreat to defend. The rook back, the bishop is not in the way. So if the pawns don't make their way forward, who will, right? So, in a situation like this, when the pressure comes to g7 and you have to play a move like f6, white gets to trade, open things up a little bit, and the position could take another turn, or maybe the game would have taken another turn. Now, obviously, after h5, black is not forced to take in e4. That was just to kind of show how an attack could potentially go. If a move like h6 is played, then of course ideas with g5 will come to life for white too. So it's definitely something to think about as black once that pawn gets pushed forward. Something else I was considering was to play f6 immediately in order to meet something like this with a rook on 7th rank. Maybe this one, maybe the other one, or maybe black wouldn't even mind the attack to g7 and just would try to bring a rook on the central file, but it certainly would have been completely different. In the game, white chose to play e5, and the reason this move is not really so great is because it blocks in all action towards black's king. So black's king is almost fully secure, and now black needs to find a way to put additional pressure on white's king. Obviously, we have an open file, and there doesn't seem to be additional ways to open further, but Brian did find one, and I kind of missed it myself, so I was quite excited to see how the game continued. Obviously, we want to place a rook in c8, right? And as soon as white played f4, you're trying to figure out where's this bishop gonna go, because, you know, it's in the way. We cannot really open it up. The queen in d4 blocks the d pawn. If we play b4, then that could be a square for a knight to be placed on. So what shall we do with the bishop? And the answer comes from the previous move, with the rook having escaped or having been developed from f8. Black can retreat in e8, and this is a very nice prophylactic idea where the bishop gets away from the c-file, and black actually brings the bishop to the defense. So any kind of breaks at some point with h5, g5, g6 will allow the bishop to get into play through that side of the board. So while black is safe on the king side, everything is going to shift towards the queen side, which ultimately led to white's demise. So knight b4, very nice. There's no real way to stop the attack on c2 other than rook d2. And rook a8 was kind of a prophylactic idea, and you're going to see in this moment why. As knight a2 was played, the king tries to find its way to exit on the king side. However, a beautiful move found by Brian stopped that exit. The idea was knight to c3. I was quite impressed by this idea. I'll certainly remember it myself for my own teachings. But knight c3 is a gorgeous idea, because now if you take the knight with the knight, you're going to get checkmated. You cannot really run away towards the king side because the knight is hanging, obviously. So you find yourself in a situation where you have to return to c1, and that's exactly what we want. If you try to capture the knight with the rook instead, by the way, a rook recaptures too, so we won an exchange. Now, maybe you can play something different and not get mated, but if you think, oh, no big deal, I'll take with the queen, I'll take with the knight, I got this. Well, not really, because now after the knight recaptures, rook a1 check, and you're still getting mated. So this was certainly a beautifully created idea by Brian, and now the position of white simply collapses. He strengthens the position of the knight there, and as the queen makes its way inside white's territory, there wasn't very much that white could fight for anymore. Rook d3, bishop b5 first, and now after the capture or the trade of the bad piece, which wasn't maybe fully necessary, but it does make sense, queen a1, and the threat of queen b2, queen takes b1 is unstoppable. So I think this game definitely deserves a lot of praise, and it was crafty crafty way of outplaying the opponent on the queen side in a Sicilian. I certainly hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and yeah, without further ado, I think it's time we get into the final round. For those of you who were not here, I want to kind of remind you of the standings in each section so that we kind of have an idea of what is going on. So I'm just going to switch the scene before getting into the actual game. So looking at, do we see it? Should see it. Okay, there it is. So looking at the standings in the K-8 championship section, Brian is the sole leader with 6 out of 6. He's followed by Arabella Feng, with whom he's actually playing as well. And the two of them, you know, whoever wins out of these two gets to win outright the championship. It's the first time we're encountering this, unlikely a possibility where there will actually, there's definitely a possibility there's just gonna be one sole winner between the two of them, because if Brian draws, then he's the sole winner. If Arabella wins, then she's the sole winner. So only one chance, no co-champions for the first time this spring in the national championships. So it's going to be an exciting round for sure. And we have quite a lot of players with 5 points going on from third place until 13th. Quite a lot of players with 4.5 too. Not as many as with 5, but there's going to be contention for a higher spots for sure. Looking at the under 1700 section, we have 2 players with 5.5, and those are Nirvan Sivakumar and Vyas Om Shankar. The 2 of them have just played against one another and they drew, so they have different pairings now, and we're going to have to wait and see which one of them will finish on top. Under 1400 section, there's one sole leader from Washington State, Lee Ron, with 6 out of 6. And then we have 2 players with 5.5 points. Both of them have shown interesting games throughout the competition. I haven't really had the opportunity to look at the other sections because we only have DGTs for the top 12 boards in the championship sections, and then 4 boards in each, the under 1700 and under 1400. But I do want to show you that there is a sole leader in the under 1100 with 6 points, and then one with 5.5. And I believe they are playing one another, so that's going to be another section where we will only see one winner. Going on to the under 900 section, 2 players with 6 out of 6 paired against one another, while in the under 700, also 2 players, Anastasia and Andrew. And in the unrated section, 1 player is leading the tournament with 6 out of 6. So that was just a recap to kind of have an idea as to what to expect for this round. While we don't have DGT boards for all of the sections, I wanted you to be aware of where we stand. And now it's time to get into the action. All right, so Brian is looking for a 7 out of 7. They transposed to a French, basically. French variation, and Brian chooses some quiet line, rook e1, rook c8. So the current position led to an isolated pawn position, and Brian chose to trade queens and go into this endgame that is slightly more comfortable for white, despite the fact that the queens were traded. Generally, you want to keep major pieces when putting pressure on an isolated pawn, but here white does have a little bit of pressure, so I will have to wait and see if his technique is going to deliver once again in this round. Okay, let's move on to the next board. So Ethan has suffered a tough defeat in round 2, but has made his way back with winning 4 rounds. And now he's on 5 out of 6, looking for a strong finish, winning this final round. He plays against Ricard Kandikayala, the player whose game I showed earlier against Brian. So we have a gioco pianissimo, very standard development for both sides. White chooses to go for b4 as opposed to rook e1, you know, the standard maneuvering h3 to stop bishop g4 and bring the knight on this other side of the board. Or maybe they will do it after b4. Sometimes people do that. Okay, looks like Ethan did. And this is the current position, catching up with board 3. We've had an exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit, but here's the catch. Black recaptured with the knight. Pawn takes is the most natural response, I'd say. And then it would allow for bishop g5 and like slow development by white. But here, white went for the center because black gave up the center. And these lines are actually quite interesting. Oh, rook b1. Okay, this is a new move. I mean, it's not a new move, but generally people play knight f3. And then after takes, black generally plays bishop b4, takes, and castle. And we generally have a position like this where white enjoys the space and the center, but black eventually develops this knight, and then they try to gain some space on the queen's side. The knight comes to f6 sometimes. It's a game. It's a bit more on the defensive side, but it is a game, and eventually black gets something. But rook b1, I mean, it's not a complete novelty or anything. Yes, this has been played before, but it's a new idea to me. I haven't considered it much, but maybe now I should. It's a nice idea that stops bishop b4. So as white, because we have more space, because we're controlling the center, we want to keep more pieces on the board. And I gotta tell you, this rook not only is placed on a file, but under some good circumstances, when you're not expecting it, we're gonna have some rook lift, either like that or like this, because likely these two pawns will disappear, and white could make its way to the other side of the board. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. And then what happened here? Knight c6. Ooh. Space control. Love that. Knight a5. Okay, that would not be my first choice. But probably this is not really good. It gives some active play for white. Or maybe bishop b5 and queen e2 or something like that, actually. I see. Okay, so bishop b5 anyways. The knight in a5 is really, really sad, in my opinion. So it's not gonna be easy to figure things out. Okay, I like Jashid's position for now. We'll see where this leads us to. This game has quite a lot of moves already. So we had a Ninja Indian, just the normal setup, a3, forcing black to give up the bishop. And now it feels that we transposed into something like a queen's gambit, but black's bishop is traded and white's bishop is still here. If you're wondering what will happen to this bishop, white generally places it in b2 or sometimes pushes e4 and then gets it out to g5. It's just a matter of how black sets up their pieces too. Looks like after bishop a6, white decided to fianchetto it, and now we'll have to find the right moment to play c4. And with this setup, black will have the ability to capture here at the point in time and then create two hanging pawns, which eventually they have to find the right way to attack. So, oh, okay, it just happened. Just happened as I was explaining that to you. So now we'll have to just, you know, follow along to see how black will put pressure on those pawns and see whether he will have the ability to win them later on or not. Of course, VJ is also looking for a way to improve and win the final round. To share the second place, of course, because considering the result on the first board, he should be able to do that. He's on 5 out of 6, I believe, also. This one is more like a Ragozin. Hi North, welcome. Welcome. I think bishop a6 is more unpleasant for white in this setup. Hi Chan, seriously Chandra Duke, why are you always doing that? Why are you always doing that? c4, h6. What do I want to do as white? Rook c1 first. Because I have a lovely name. But it's Sabina, though. It's Sabina. It doesn't have an R. That's the point. That's the point I keep trying to make. You just want me to say it. I see. I see how it works. Maybe Rook c1 would be my preference. But after that, should we go 95? Not a fan. Maybe we should take. I wonder how I feel about this. Kind of like it. Gotcha, no worries. I mean, I didn't know if you're doing it on purpose or it's autocorrect. Oh, good, don't worry about it. I kind of like this position because, yes, it's true. We do allow the capture of the bishop, but we have succeeded in creating a protected pass pawn. We have blocked in or locked in that bishop, and we also kept our own bishop opened. So, like, extra success. So that is my goal for white. Now, obviously, when we take black and also capture with the bishop, which is not completely wrong, in that situation, I don't know if we take and then go, I don't like the take. I really like to keep this pawn here as much as possible. So what would I do now? Because I cannot go e4. Maybe rook e1 first, you know, to support e4 eventually, but they can go rook e8. Maybe I'll go here. Pin it. Pin it and then it's about equal. It's about equal. No worries. All right. What have we got here? 4 knights, a3, very typical. For this tournament, I've seen that a3 before. Queen here, trades. Bishop d7. Okay, so we're going to have an opposite side castling likely or no? What? Wait a second, wait a second. What just happened here? What just happened? Now, obviously, you cannot go rook here because you're gonna lose something. It's not perfect, this situation, but it is something. Actually, black is okay. Yeah, I mean, black is okay. That's why we don't do that. Checky. So apparently that's a mistake. Maybe queen here? No, but this just loses a piece. Yeah, just loses a piece. So what? The correct move is king c6? Oh, goodness. Nobody's gonna play king c6 in that position. Come on. Come on, engine. That's... I get it. I get it is the only move, but wow, okay. That's a bit much even for me. It is kind of clever. It stops checks and things like that. Yeah, bishop b4 a lot of the times in 4 knights. That's a line that's unpleasant, I think. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea, I'd say. Oh, it was a 3-minute game. Yeah, 3-minute games are tricky. I know the other night, getting ready for this commentary, I ended up streaming on my channel, and I was playing a little bit of Bullet at first, and everything seemed fine, you know, for a while, and then I was like, I'm just gonna play some 3-minute games. It was an interesting change, I gotta say, because with Bullet you're not actually getting the chance to think much. With 3 minutes you do. So for me, it had the reverse process than maybe it had for you. I thought it was a bit too slow because I was playing Bullet before, but I did not. You know, I'm not saying you should play Bullet. I do it when I stream for fun. Fun is good to have sometimes. Yeah, the problem with this position is that White's gonna lose that. White's gonna win that pawn. We probably can even take it now, but maybe Rook D1 is more useful first. And then when he goes there, then we can take it maybe. I also kind of like this move, but it's not gonna really create any kind of big issues. But Rook D1 first, it's going to be helping White improve the position for sure. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is also looks like this also had this A3. So maybe I saw Elliot playing it in the past in one of the rounds. Black decided to play for D5. It makes sense. Grab the pawn. Similar game as the previous one, just Black has castled a bit faster and gets to recapture like this because the knight protects the bishop. So if you take, the knight will recapture, so it will make perfect. Oh, I guess not. They chose still with the queen. I thought the knight was gonna take back. Okay, queen takes works too, because you cannot take this knight with either piece. You're going to fall for a little checkmate here. So I guess that makes sense. And then Black will trade, and this looks very equal. This looks way too equal. But White is trying to find its way for some space on that side of the board. Likely F6 will be played, and still pretty equal, even with those pawns pushed. Nothing has been created really. Yeah, Challenger Duke, I've had some personal matters to attend to, so I haven't really streamed as I promised that I would. So I'm not making promises anymore. But generally, it's likely in the evenings, typically after maybe 8 p.m. Eastern time is generally when you might see me online. Generally in the evening, because my main focus is personal training to try to compete back again, and then coaching. So generally that's the time that I'm more free. So I would stream mostly at night, Eastern time. What was the suggestion? Yeah, round 7 definitely has the A3 theme. Clearly A3 theme. Let's see how many more games we're gonna catch with A3. Okay, so we have the Ruy Lopez here. Chigorin. Oh, it wasn't even Chigorin because, wait a second. Black went for the bishop immediately. Okay. Kyle is getting ready to put on some pressure. You have to be careful. You cannot go knight h4 before making sure it's protected, because oftentimes there's a capture in d5 and you can lose a pawn. So you have to be super careful with the time that you will actually put the knight in the ring. So now we have a Khan Sicilian here, I think. Yeah, Khan. think e5 or bishop e7 are more natural moves here for black. Do you think we're gonna see a5? Something like that, or maybe we should go for f4 as white. F4 seems typical too. I don't know why it's marked as a mistake. I don't think there's a tactical idea for white here. Oh, f3 is a mistake for white. So what exactly did white have here after d6? That's funny. That is funny. Does anyone have any sacrifice ideas? I don't see any. I thought the a5 was the move, but it does drop the bar, so it generally when it drops like that, it might be something more serious. I don't see bishop c4. No. To sacrifice in e6. It should be more about openings north, but a lot of the times I focus on calculation and an endgame review, because even if, you know, I pride myself to really enjoy endgames a lot, I have noticed that I forgot some important nuances, especially when I have to teach something and I don't remember exactly what the solution is and I have to check it with the engine. It's bothersome, so I generally like to kind of mix the training on various areas of the game, because if you're just focusing on one, generally you know, the others are not developing enough. But openings are certainly things that you have to focus on a lot today, because they are the most important. You know, if I'm funny, I want to suggest something like this. Like, this is one of those Magnus Carlsen's ideas, you know, bringing in the queen to a2 and then bringing it to play, potential sacrifices and stuff. But, you know, it doesn't lead too much. Maybe c3, but it's just nah. Wow. Wow, it is c3. This is really interesting. So when you take, then the b file opens up, and maybe that's why it marks. Oh, you don't even recapture. What? What, queen b3? Nah. Did I just discover a new thing? Wow. I guess we take here maybe. No, but there's queen. No. I think we take here. Not even close. There's better. There's something better. And knight c6, there's queen c8. Okay, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. I feel like I've discovered something. Can I take credit for this? Can I actually take credit for this? This is cute. This is totally unexpected. I guess black can try to hold on to the pawn by playing a5, but we're gonna take. And then queen here, and we're gonna get that pawn back. Or actually, we also have bishop e5, which is okay, so that's why that move wasn't so good, I guess. And f3 is a mistake because don't these x's just bother you sometimes a little bit? A little tiny little bit? It's like d5, nah. a5. No, a5 doesn't do a thing. e5 allows the knight to go. There's no sacrifice. Knight c6. I think bishop e7 is just so normal. What, knight d7, knight c5, or knight? And then maybe that bishop will be lost. I mean, this is a bit tricky, definitely tricky. I mean, it's still early on to really mark them as red, but you know. Okay, so we have another Sicilian here. This was played yesterday too. I wonder if it was the same player. I didn't pay attention. c5 is a cool idea. Trying to destroy black's pawn structure, so though temporarily losing a pawn, white will have a clear path to improving the position further. But first, of course, we need to deal with this bishop. So I don't know if we're gonna go knight d2 first, rook c1, or maybe rook d1 first, one of the rooks, and then this one to c1, and white will put pressure. Yeah, maybe he did intend the Sveshnikov. Exchange variation of the French. We have seen some cool sacrifice in another round with some knight takes g7. I was suggested. Well, clearly black does not need to take the knight in e5, but I know how unpleasant it can be to have to deal with such a knight and have to make moves like that, or not know how to develop. b6 doesn't seem appealing. c5 if you're not ready to, because the knight b5. I think g5 is too much, right? Yeah, definitely. Maybe knight b6. No. Can knight e4 be played? No, we'll take. But we do need to do something about this. Or maybe here we don't need to take. But what can we come up with? I don't see a move. Only queen e7, but that cannot be good. Does anyone have an idea to the correct move here for black? Because this bishop is being captured with tempo, so like this would just take like nothing. Unless black wants to take with the rook, but like what's the point? Really? Wants to take with the rook. Sorry. Dankeschön. Probably black. Sorry. This is interesting. So black is happy to have a pawn for the exchange in the bishop pair, much better than the actual game. Let's see how the game went. There was queen g3, which was missed, and now you're just losing. You're just losing material. That rook e8 in between move was nice. Okay, so white is up in exchange. Okay, interesting idea. I need to think about that more, because sometimes I play the French and exchange variation is often one of those lines that you're trying to avoid. You want to play something less symmetrical, but you can't help it if the opponent chooses that, right? Okay, d takes e4 is the continuation, and it's still pretty balanced, I'd say. The bishop is hanging before you play bishop g4. You'll need to wait. So this is board 1 in the under 1700 section. So we have some kind of Catalan. Yeah, very, very symmetrical. I mean, not symmetrical, but very, very balanced position here. I'm deciding if c5 is a move that I want to play, or just kind of keep the pawn there and have the opportunity to play e4 later. Maybe he's just gonna keep it. Maybe rook b1, move the bishop, put some pressure. So this pawn will be protected. And if you do take at some point, we will have e4 and d5 idea. So if you're wondering why white didn't take here, because the bishop takes g3, and when you trade queens, one of these pawns will be captured. So black has the pawn back. Like, there's no need to necessarily be worried about the capture. Okay, now that the capture happens, we have what we call the rhombus. I think that's how we call it in English. I don't know. In Romanian, that's how we call it. Rook b1. Seems a bit much. I think rook c1 makes more sense. King g2 makes more sense. I like king g2. Maybe we don't even care. Maybe we can just take. But then they take this pawn. I mean, I don't want them to take that pawn. Maybe just f4. Let's go. Stop the knight. All of these moves are pretty good for white. Alright, board 5th. Well, board three under 1700. We have some Caro-Kann look-alike, or Gurgenidze in a way. Black has to give up the bishop, and now it's like, you know, a good French, basically. We'll have to figure out the right moment to play f6 for black. Yes, there you have it. I might have considered taking with the queen, with the rook, and then bringing the other rook. I think it makes a bit more sense, but bishop works too, putting additional pressure in the center. Knight f5, okay. Uh-oh. Since the pawn cannot be protected, like a move like this, maybe knight takes. So maybe knight takes d4 works better, because at least it forces white to give up the bishop. Then we take with the queen and we should be fine. Maybe white should have played bishop h, but then there's rook b8. Maybe knight takes. This would make more sense. If you take b2, rook b1 and trying to get active. If you play some random square, who knows? Maybe we'll capture and then knight e7 check and try to get that. Or maybe you'll go knight e7 first. Like, the point would be to try to stay with the bishop, which I kind of like for white, actually. This looks pretty good for white, I'd say. Okay, now the players are trading off towards an equal endgame. I'm not sure this is something that white wanted, necessarily. Because white seemed to be the one putting pressure. Black's king was a bit weak, so we had to try to find the right way to put additional pressure, you know? Okay, it's marked as a mistake because white has the ability to take control over the center, so don't panic. It's not really a blunder. Again, white could take in d5 and take control over the center, but looks like white didn't really want to do that and went for the closing down of the position. And now generally we go knight e5 and then we chase this bishop away. I know Vladimir played earlier in the morning and I was like, I love that name. That's a really great name to have, you know? Chess Bra. I wonder if he had the name or he changed the name. It would be cool to have that name. Yeah, white's position is relatively better because they do have the knight versus the bishop here in a close position, not ideal. We just need to figure out the right entrance in the opponent's territory, because right now we don't have any, and f3, it's hard for me to understand when it will be played. So b4 is probably the only thing that white should be considering doing, but now that the king is there, it's kind of hard. Unless he's gonna sack an exchange. Exactly. It's not obvious. It's not an obvious name. And plus he has bro, I mean, come on. You know, the funny thing is, like, you can make jokes like this chess bro's name is Chess Bro. Or something, I don't know. I just came up with that. It's probably silly. But I don't know who this person is, but Pretty cool name. Gotta give him that. Okay, so we have just the Tartakova variation of the Caro, pretty standard. So Liron is the player with 6 out of 6, while Doron is on 5.5 in this section. So this is board 1 in the under 1400 section, with a player with 6 out of 6. Yeah, black wins a lot of material for that. So it was not very... Wait, why didn't black... Did black forgot to defend the pawn? I believe he did. He must have forgotten to defend it. Because there's no point to just give up the pawn for no reason. Okay, 2 pieces are supposed to be better than rook and a pawn, but there's no need to trade everything down. Okay, the king makes it in the center. White blunders. That pawn will be captured. I don't know why not takes, because if you take, you know, trade it in a good way. Yeah, true. Lots of good comments. Okay, black still can go here and grab the pawn. So, okay, so it'll just be 2 minor pieces for rook. Alright, let's see how Nakamura is doing. Louis. So black chose to go back to e7, not give up the bishop pair. I believe black forgot about this, and so did white. You always have to be careful when you push pawns like that. You're creating what is called here bathtub, I think. I think someone was mentioning that. But exactly because of that, you need to make sure those pawns that stay behind are going to be covered. Okay, white is still better, surely, but I still think knight g5 is the way to go to try to win material here. If you wait too long, black is gonna be able to regroup. Maybe make some trades. Maybe knight here, offer some trades. Get some space, you know. It's a must. It's definitely a must there. Okay, very normal moves from both sides here, back and forth. Very symmetrical besides the placement of these bishops. If rooks get traded, I think it could be headed for a draw, but anyone still has a chance there. And lastly, board 4 in the under 1400 brought us a Vienna, but no f4. White decided to change their mind. They didn't go for f4. Also, he can castle, or you can go queen d2 to castle long. What is this? Why he went back? Oh, this makes me sad. The bishop has moved way too much. Bishop g5, bishop e3, bishop d2 is... sorry. Sorry, guys. Did I fix it? Yeah. Bishop g5, bishop e3, bishop d2 is just too much. A bit too much. A bit too much here. Well, if I were white, I would try to move this knight away and play f4. With the bishop and the queen, you're certainly looking towards the king side. So that's the side of the board you want to do things. There's not so much to do on the queen side. In fact, that's where black may want to do something with b5, b4. You know, trade pawns off, bring in new rooks into the game. That seems to be H3 got question mark? No. There was an A3. There was an A3 being played there. I don't know why H3 got question mark. It's just an unexpected move. Not necessary. I think it's because white generally plays something with f4, or maybe knight d5 was a good move too. It's just not the you know, ultimately right continuation. What is white doing on this side of the board? Black will be the one putting pressure, so now it will be more about defending, I think, for white. Oh, we have a result and a winner. Wow, this was faster than I thought. Wow, big congratulations to Brian and Ming Lin for being able to win the tournament, the K-8 middle school championship with 7 out of 7. This is huge. This is a huge result. Big congratulations to him. We left off around here after the queens were about to be traded. He traded off the queens. How did he win that fast? It wasn't that long. Arabella must have rushed a little bit, maybe. Oh, she rushed. She played bishop f5 and oh, that is a tough blunder. It's okay, Arabella. Don't give up. You fought really, really hard in this tournament. Just quite impressed with the previous round's win. It was definitely really nice. So I guess she will finish shared, you know, depends how many people share a second. But if they win with 6 points, she's finishing with 5.5. But very, very awesome play throughout, and there's definitely a lot to learn. Also, Brian is a pretty strong player, so he is a tough opponent too, yeah. But bishop f5 unfortunately loses on the spot because it leaves the pawn unprotected, so white can simply take, and now black loses more than just the pawn, because the problem is if you go here to protect the bishop, you're losing the bishop. So it's not just the pawn that she blundered. Unfortunately, she blundered a whole piece, and now there's not so much to do from here. It's just a matter of time until white is able to win. But okay, the knight is certainly kind of cute, but there was definitely not the kind of blunder you want to make. It's tough. Maybe black would have traded first and maybe a6 if it works, and then try to hide with the king over there and then switch over. I mean, this pawn will have to be protected. I know it's not easy. I really want to say move the king somewhere, but the problem is there will be some pressure. So it's not easy to really make things happen. I have a champion. All right, it's been about an hour or so since I started. For those of you who are on site, please remember that there's still a few events happening on site. So we have Grandmaster Julio Sadorra taking on challenges from well, he started about an hour ago. So if you're heading to Kalahari Ballroom E, you still have the chance to join him and challenge him to a game of Blitz. So if you're on site, please stop by. And then Girls Club, the Girls Club is closing down in the next hour or so. So if you haven't stopped by, or if you still have things to discuss, questions to ask, feel free to stop by there. These are the last 2 events of the tournament, so hopefully you can take advantage of them. All right, we'll be taking a short break, and we'll leave you with the top 8 boards in the championship section. Keep in mind, we already have a winner. Brian Lin has won his game, and he won the national K-8 middle school championship with 100% score. 7 out of 7. Congratulations to him. And we're waiting on some of the other results. I will be returning with you shortly, so hopefully you stay close and see you in a little bit. All right, we are back. Looks like we had another game finishing here. Board 3. Jashit has won his game, and I actually wanted to see how he's managed to. I mean, we know he was doing much better, but how exactly did he manage to completely outplay his opponent by the end? That king was in big trouble, wasn't it? Rook e1. Okay, avoiding the queen trade. Of course, we're going to avoid. Ah, so black played g6 to stop queen f5, and now he got his queen somewhat trapped, and in order to avoid allowing some check here or something, he decided to take the pawn. But after knight e4, rook d1 is coming. No way to stop this move. Rook d1. Either one of the rooks is going to make it there. Queen a4 check, and now taking the bishop. Now that the bishop is gone, we have the ability to put extra pressure, and this is a pretty beautiful way to finish the game with a pawn checkmate. So kudos to Jashit for winning this, and he's going to share second place with this win with 6 out of 7. Nice one. So we already have a champion in the championship section. International Master Brian Lean. Once again, congratulations to him. Ethan is looking to try to pull off a final win to share second place after having suffered a defeat in round 2. He's made his way back to the top. Unfortunately, he hasn't had the chance to try to fight for the championship. Had he had, you know, half a point more, he would have had the chance to play against Brian, but such was the tournament that it didn't allow for that to happen, and second place is still pretty good. So let's see. I know everyone has been mentioning this again. I'm sorry. This is all. This is all of the sound that you get. So it's on max. It's on max. I try to minimize the noise in the background, and so this is the reason why you're not getting it higher. But if you put your volume on max, it should be more than enough. Not trying to break anyone's ears here. All right, so this is a pretty good good position to play long term for white, but there's no real way of putting a lot of pressure there just yet. If white had a way, that would be good, but I don't think there is one. So probably we're looking into some more trades, unless Ethan is thinking to switch over to the C file. But here there's not so much either. So move like rook a5 would be nice, but that's not possible. So maybe he's gonna try to find a way to get d4 in. It's not easy. Okay, so yeah, this is the volume that you guys get. I mean, I think it's pretty good. I've been testing it. The videos are posting on YouTube. Volume seems fine. So what can I say? I try to avoid speaking too loud. The mic is here too. All right. So do we expect Ethan to win? He's got a bit more time. I'm not seeing a forcing. Ah, actually, I saw one. We're gonna take. This is how he can maintain some pressure, and then he can go rook a1 or something of this kind to try to bring in the rook into the game. That is the best that I can see. Ah, I saw a different idea now. Something, but I mean, it's just, you know, hanging the knight. It's no big deal. The king will move. No big deal. But hey, it's cute. Yes. It passes the test of cuteness. Can we do this? This gives some vibes of potential pressure. It's not much. Black can defend that pawn easily, but that would be my way of trying to improve here for Ethan. Big win for Jashit. Is VJ going to be able to put pressure on those hanging pawns? I did mention he's gonna double, so he did. He put pressure on the C pawn. And now some alternative ideas would be to try to bring in the knight to d6. All he has to be mindful about is, of course, the g7 pawn, but he can do that. This other knight can make its way to f6, while this one can go to d6. And after all, the knight in d7 is not so greatly placed, so we do want to consider something like that. Now, sometimes people might consider pushing b5, but I don't think we're ready for that just yet, so it should be fine. Hey, Michigan. Wait, you changed? Did you change your username? Because it used to be FM Michigan, no? What happened to the FM? Wasn't FM Michigan Eagle? You dropped? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you not have the... You do have the title though, right? You are an FM, no? Who wants to drop their FM title? Just asking. Asking for a friend. Oh, I see. Okay. With 5 I am norms. Oh, okay. That's great. That is great. So, I guess the rating is the problem. You're not the only one. Rating these days is very tricky to get. It's very tricky. But once it happens, you got it. Yeah, my rating is is going down, so I don't know. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. It's tougher as we age. But it's never too late. Remember that. We can still do it. Very well played game by these two guys. I'm actually surprised why didn't you choose... Is there something wrong with this move? Like what, queen e4? Okay, so he preferred to... Actually, I like the trade of the queens because it may make black's life more difficult. A little bit. So now we got bishop versus knight. It would have been nice if we could avoid the trade of the bishop, but if bishop goes to c4, black is okay, so he chose to trade it. But I don't know. Seems pretty equal to me. Yeah, Irina is very strong. She is very strong. Rating deflation. So are you saying our rating was inflated? I don't think so. I do not believe that. I will not believe that. Oh, come on. Don't be so tough on yourself. You remind me of myself. I'm trying to get away from that mindset. I'm trying to get away from the mindset where, you know, I'm putting myself down. Nope. Nope. These days is about positive thinking, positive vibes, positive statements, and moving forward. That's what it is all about. And I could make a joke also, but it's gonna sound political, so I'm going to avoid making that joke. Okay. Okay, I see. I see. Well, as at I'm whatever works. Wait, I thought this was gonna. How did this end? How did this game end with? Wait a second. Like, white was the one who was gaining extra space on that side of the board. Suddenly, black pushed all these pawns forward, and the game is over. So white won. How did white win this? Because black seems to be doing suddenly much better. Okay, rook c1 because he didn't want to repeat. Okay. Sad. Sad, 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 sad. Very sad. Oh, I'm sorry, Kenji. You've played a great game so far. It's probably the tiredness of the tournament. It's not easy. What I don't know what to say. When I see blunders like this, it breaks my heart because you know, you work so hard, you get a good position, you improve, and then you touch the wrong piece, and then you have to move it, and then you drop a rook, and then it's over. So that's tough. Oh, okay, what to say? Yeah, but sack the rook in a good fashion. This is sad. This makes me sad. I can't possibly imagine what's in his heart after making that move, you know, because he's played really good. I mean, black has various things to do. Try to double up, move this other rook. Even move it here, maybe. There's probably something even better than that. This rook this move apparently is not even good at all. Maybe put the rook to e5 to kind of threaten some, like g4 to trap the queen, for example. So you have to check, and maybe we can hide. No, we cannot hide somehow for some reason. Oh, because bishop takes f4 maybe. So if we trade, I mean, black is better. Black has control over the two open files in the game, and this bishop is dead for the time being. So black is doing quite well there. Why not? I mean, I know you're coming here every time, but unfortunately I don't have updates for the under 900 section. So you'll have to wait until he finishes the game. We do not have access to the DGT boards, right? But I think he was doing really great, right? He's on 6 out of 6, right? So he's playing for potentially having 7 out of 7. So I hope he does well. I hope he does well. My cat just sneezed, so maybe it's a sign of good luck. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means when a cat sneezes, but my cat sneezed, so you know, generally if someone sneezes, good luck, I think. Regina is enjoying her nap, then she woke up randomly. I didn't even expect the noise. It's like, what just happened? Okay. So what have we got over here? This is an interesting position. King's Indian slash Ruy Lopez. Close Ruy Lopez. I don't know if that was the best move. Should we play b3? Just to protect the pawn first? Should we switch the queen over to this other side of the board? We have quite a lot of good moves for white here. I mean, the idea to protect this pawn is to take an a6. I don't want to trade the a6 pawn with a b2 pawn because I'm giving black a little bit of counterplay. I don't think it's much, but I'd rather win that pawn without giving the b2 one. So that's certainly something that white is thinking, I'm sure. So it's probably going to protect the pawn and then proceed further from there. Okay, we've had some... This is the game where I found a novelty. I will keep it if you missed it. Something with c3. Some fanciness with c3. Ah, well, now it's too late. Now it's a bit too late. Because now, I mean, white remains with the weakness here. Before, we were bringing the queen, trying to get the bishop. You know, that was something different. But here, I don't like c3 that much. Knight h5. Should we play? Queen. Should we go queen g4 and if he goes there, queen h3 to still have some ideas to sack in e6? Because I think if we go queen h3, then this is going to be very, very unpleasant. Very. And I also don't like queen f2, knight f4 is still very unpleasant. Probably queen g4 seems fine. It's with tempo, forces the knight to go back, controls f4 so that you don't go grab the bishop. I think that is the move I'm expecting to be played there. Wait, what happened here? d5? But I feel like we've seen a game like this in the past. I've seen something very similar. I mean, this just allows the capturings. This. No. Wait. This. How's black saving the... There's no save. That's it. GG. That was confusing. As to why white didn't go for that. Okay, he takes in c6, but no extra material yet. Okay, e5 is weak, queen c7. No cause for alarm. Right? Or is there this move? Or f4 maybe. f4 is actually unpleasant. I'll give you that. Okay, so queen c7 is not really that great of a move. We need to protect the pawn differently. Maybe knight d7, but this also doesn't appeal to me. f4 or actually knight d5 is also unpleasant. Okay. So maybe white is still better, but I still think taking the pawn in the center, bringing in a new rook, pinning the knight would have won way more material for white there. For sure. How did we get here? Oh, this is that game where black blundered and the correct move in this position, crazy enough, or not crazy enough, would have been rook takes e5. Sacrificing the rook, followed by bishop takes, and now black has a pawn for the exchange in a much, much better position than what happened in the game. I mean, they're not much better, but it's better than the game because the problem was that with all of the trades that happened, in the end, white stayed with the rook, and some pawns were falling, and there's no, like, just an exchange, and that pawn is not strong enough to actually create anything. Okay. Yeah. Rook and 3 pawns now for 2 minor pieces. There's no way there's gonna be a survival from black side here. There's no way. Okay, the king and pawn is winning. So I guess they'll be playing till mate, but Finesse is on his way of to win this. Was bishop h3 a better solution? Not quite. What about knight g4? I'm threatening to take and take, so you might consider h4. And then maybe bishop b6. So white's pawn structure is going to be quite destroyed now. If you go rook e2 or rook f1, there's bishop c4 too, and takes. Black could have put tremendous pressure on white's king. I think now we can just move the knight. Bishop e2, knight c2, knight c4. Knight check is nice too in between. I don't want this. This would be nice, but I mean, because we have a check, but it's a bit too much. It's a bit too much. I thought after this there's g5, but I guess we do have this spot for the knight, and this is good for white. So knight h4 is probably going to be a good idea for Arya. I'm actually surprised white didn't take with the pawn. This creates a passed pawn immediately. There's not even no question asked. This can be really good from white's perspective, I think. Then the pawn gets advanced and you bring in the queen, then you switch over one of the sides, activate the queen, offer the trade, and then support the pawn. That's generally what we expect would happen for white in those kinds of positions. Here we'll have to fight to create the passed pawn to make sure the king is safe. No passed pawn yet. Black has more chances to hold on in this position, I believe, than in the other. What's going on here? This game just finished, but it's supposed to be a draw. How did white won? No. Why did black play that move? It wasn't necessary. Oh, the toughness of the last round, the stress, the pressure, everything. I feel bad. It's not necessary. Black can just go back. Oh, black cannot go back? Wait, what am I doing? Oh, no. It has to go there so that... Wait. Wait, where do I have to go? For the, Because you're entering. Wait. I have to go... Here. And now G5. You have to take now H4. You don't have time for this. Because even if you promote first and it would normally be a mate, I promote with check and it's a draw. Okay? And after takes here, if white goes, if white would have 2 more moves, then they would win, but they don't. So now we can just take. You can go gladly take that pawn, but you will not be in time. It's not easy, but it's easy. I mean, it's easy to mess up. I almost went on the wrong spot here. Here loses because what white does is white goes here. So if I go here, it's a draw, right? Because even if I go takes, you just keep the king and you get in front of the pawn, and this is a draw. But when you go here and white goes king d5, you don't have time for this, because what happens now, the pawns are in a straight line, which means whenever you're gonna attack them, right? So we can push one once again. Whenever you go to attack one of them, the other one pushes forward, and then pawns in L shape like this lead to a win. So you cannot play g5 just yet, so you're gonna take the opposition. That'll go e6, and if you go king e7, king e5 again, you cannot play this because I take. And when you do this, now the difference is you're not promoting with a check, so I promote first and then I'm gonna mate you. So that's a big problem. And if you try to go there, so that if king e5 you go king e7, I would get it. This would be of course a draw, but for this move white plays king d6, and if you go king d8, e7, king e8, king e6, and you attempt to go g5, once again white is going to promote with checkmate first. So that is the big issue in this situation, basically. So that's tough. Unfortunately, black played g5 a bit too soon and now is losing because, yeah, white enters the box. You can never win those pawns, and then white wins. Whichever pawn you choose to attack, the other one pushes forward and creates this kind of fortress. If you go on this other side of the board, we've created this other kind of fortress. So this was a completely unexpected finish for this game. I thought it would end in a draw. Tough one. What is white's best way to get to black's king? This? What happens if I actually take the pawn? Maybe you start marching others. There's no need for white to give out the pawn though. Maybe g4. Although, wait, am I worried about this? Maybe not, because I can play f4. Right? Ha! Oh, you have to be so careful. You think you're not gonna lose the pawn, but suddenly out of nowhere, what? That is actually possible. Okay, we have to be careful here. So queen d3 is an unpleasant situation there. Maybe don't go g4 just yet. Maybe we can lock the bishop in somehow, and then we can play a 4f5. I think that makes a little tiny little bit more sense. Just a tiny little bit more sense. Okay. So this is a difficult position for Vladimir, but we'll see how he handles it. Liron has won, so that means no, he's lost. Liron has lost, so that means we already know who's the champion for the under 1400. Or no, we need to still know what Louis Nakamura has done. Okay, so let's see, because Liron was the player with the 6 out of 6, and Yotam Doron Repa was the player with 5.5. And I was mentioning I thought this was not quite ideal, but what happened? Still doesn't seem real. The white, oh, check in between check. Oh, he must have miscalculated or something, because now it's over. The king and pawn is black is much faster. He must have not realized, and that's a b pawn. If it were a c pawn, you could draw, but unfortunately it's a b pawn, and now did black know how to? Okay, white didn't know to try to come here, but okay, it's still gonna be game over very fast. It's the fastest way to win is probably this check pawn, and then if you go there. Oh, I can't do this yet because that's not mate. My bad. Wait, I was gonna mate you in d8. I forgot. This is generally the way they win. They check pawn, you have to go in front of it. If you go away, we'll take the pawn. I thought we had a mate, but we don't. We have to go through this entire thing. Do we have something faster though? It says mate in 5. Where is the mate in 5? Ah, okay, I see it. So I'm trying to find the mate in 5. Obviously, this is a win in a different fashion. It's a b pawn. You just check until the king is in front, then you bring your own king. But I was trying to find the mate, so if that happens, we got the mate. This is the one I was trying to look for, but I put something silly there. So if he goes there, obviously it's mate, so that's about it. He can promote some other piece, but the mate will happen anyways. This is nice. So Doron Repa Yotam is going to be at least shared first in the under 1400 section. Let's see what happens in this one. If Nakamura wins, then he will join him. Otherwise, we will only have one winner in this section. Nakamura Louis seems to be doing quite well. He's up 2 pieces for the 2 pieces and how many pawns? No pawns, just 2 pieces. He has 2 bishops for a rook. So white's attack is kind of gone. Potentially we'll have co-champions in this section, co-winners. No mate for black, but they're up 2 pawns. It's more than enough to win the game. And lastly, this game ended in a draw. The position never opened up. It looks like the players agreed on a draw. That makes a lot of sense. Looking back, it looks like we have 16 out of the 20 boards remaining, so still pretty good, I'd say, for For the amount of time that they played, I mean, it's not as many games that they've finished, but some of them are pretty decided, I'd say. So, or no, 12 games remaining, actually, not 16, 12 games remaining. So let's catch up with them once again. So Ethan is still trying to find a way to win. Did he trade in a7? He did trade, and now he's trying to find its way to put pressure on those weaknesses. So we got e6 as a weakness, b5 as a weakness, but it's not so easy to really win them. He's going to try to press his opponent to spend a little bit more time, and time is going to be a big factor in the ending of this tournament. Rashid had won that game. I thought VJ was doing a bit better here, no? He got the b5 without white being able to play c5, I guess, so that's a good thing. But there's no clear path to win yet. He's at least created an isolated pawn. White found the right move to trade it off. Maybe the game will be traded off to a draw. It's difficult with black to avoid the trades, so we kind of have to take here everything. Sorry. Oh wait, that doesn't work. So what does he want to do after this? Knight f5? Knight f5 looks safe. I mean, we can repeat like that if we want to. It's looking equal. These guys agreed on a draw. Okay, I felt this might happen. There was no way for white to play for a win. This rook stays on 6th rank. The king comes into play. There's nothing to really attack as white. I mean, yeah, you can try to play on and bring the king, but it's just too symmetrical to expect something concrete would lead from that position. This game could end in a draw as well after king c4 if black just repeats. Again, they're not sufficient weaknesses, and this pawn can actually be dangerous if it does get to be advanced a little bit further, but I thought someone, like white was doing better, right? So he plays rook d1, and couldn't black just take in b2? Alex missed the capture in b2. Whew, tough blunders for this final round by lots of players. I mean, yes, black can take there because obviously you cannot recapture, but I think the other pawn was oopsie, sorry. I think the other pawn was more useful than this one, because now, you know, if you cannot really take in b2, c7 hangs, and I don't know. The other pawn would be making more sense, because then c3 would be hanging too later. But like this, it was just the recapturing of some material. So I think draw is what we are to be expecting in that game. That was a tough blunder for black in that position. Okay, so white has brought in the queen on the a file. The only thing I don't like is the fact that the queen is ahead of the rooks. I mean, generally you want these two pieces flipped, right? You want the rook to be in front of the queen. The queen is usually last. It's called Alekine's gun idea, right? Looks like in this position, white did go for queen g4, and what, knight f4 is still possible? Ah, because if you take everything, there's bishop g5. I didn't realize that was still possible. But, I mean, it's not as bad. It's not as bad the situation, I think. But I don't know why black never took in c3. This seems such a natural move to be made, creating a weakness, bringing the rook on the c file to put pressure. This just seems so natural. He didn't want to go for that. Okay, no worries. No cause for alarm. White needs to find the right way to win that pawn. a4 is nice. It stops b5. Maybe we'll be able to put the knight there at some point. Maybe f3 first. Cover this pawn, put the knight in b5, rook c1, and double up on the c file to try to grab the pawn. It's definitely very weak. Okay, we expected this endgame was going to end in a win for white. Very nice. For Phineas. Here, as we said, knight g4 was the right approach. And then when you go here, bishop b6, putting additional pressure on the weakness. Black played that instead of queen b3 was my suggestion. And then here, I think we need to do something with a discovered attack somehow. Or knight h4, we said this was a perfectly fine move. g5 does allow the knight to go to f5. It's just perfect. You know, not every single time when we're thinking, oh, I shouldn't put the knight on the rim, you really shouldn't put the knight on the rim. Sometimes you can adjust, you know, your decision making. Sometimes it's fine to put the knight on the rim. There's nothing wrong with that. Here, black is continuing the pressure, and I'm having trouble finding a good defense. For example, if you do this, I have the feeling there'll be some sacrifices. Nothing just yet, though, on the horizon. Maybe bishop b6 first. Extra pressure in f2. And at some point, there will be a sacrifice with, like, rook takes and then bringing the other rook in. Kind of like the Opera's game, you know, when they take in d7 and then they bring the other rook to d1. Because you are keeping them pins. So if they cannot put an additional defense, you bring an additional attacker. By getting rid of one of their defending pieces. Okay, this is looking good for white. Wait, I thought this in this game I thought black had chances to draw, but he missed the trade of the queens. Okay, now I think it's lost. Yeah. Yeah, it's lost. White is way faster. And then takes that pawn and then it is game over. And even if we don't take it first, right? You can play here. Just don't take for stalemate, right? Anything else, you can just even push. Don't forget to take it. You can still push. Just because I tried to be funny. Okay, fine, we can trade the queens, and then we can win. So it's definitely something that's possible. I feel for Nirvan because he had two very good games in the past two rounds. So you know, losing the last one after working your way, you know, back to the top, I think it's not really ideal. I think you're sharing second place or third. Thank you so much, North Down. I hope I'll get the chance to see you again soon. Thanks for stopping by the stream, and hope I'll see you on my own as well very soon. Okay, so he went there to avoid the entrance. The point is, if you push to try to kind of create some kind of blockade here, but black will never really be able to do much, and they easily get pushed back. And once they get pushed back and the king enters and pushes the e-pawn, then white's king makes its way to these two pawns, and the game will be won by white. I saw that nice win. Let's see. Looks like white wound up playing e4, which I thought was a great idea to lock in the bishop, so that queen d3 ideas don't even cross black's mind. Yeah. Now we're pushing the queen away, and then I think white has this idea. You have to be a bit cautious because if the queen does go to c4, there will be a few checks that could be annoying, so you need to make sure on how you approach the situation, but it's not over yet, but it will be. White continues the pressure, but black protects valiantly. Queen e6, covering the knight, pinning this one. Maybe we'll take the knight if you don't do much about it. Maybe we'll play rook d8. We like it. This is the game where black had 3 extra pawns. Should be winning. Okay, guys. I think it's time for my final break of the day. We'll be taking a final break here. We'll leave you with the top boards. Well, the remaining boards. We have actually 12 games left, but I will leave you with the top. I mean the higher 8, higher of 8s, I guess. And we'll be sure to be back within the next 15 minutes or so. Let's adjust this a little bit to make sure you guys see the active games. In case they finish, you'll be able to see them all. And I'll make my way back on stream in about 15 minutes. Thank you for staying close, and can't wait to call in the action on some of these. I mean, some of them are still balanced, but as the time will run down, I can tell you I'm expecting some blunders. So, not that I want them to happen, but I feel it's the pressure of the tournament, the 7 rounds, last game, anything can happen, and we'll be here to take knowledge of it. So stay close, and we'll see you in a little bit. All right, everyone. We are back. Looks like 8 games remain only in this middle school K through 8 grade championship. Let's catch up with the final moments and see what we may have missed while on break. So we already know the champion in the 8th grade championship. That is International Master Brian Lin. He's won a beautiful game in the final round, and now we're waiting to see the winners of the other sections as well as those who are going to join the podium, let's say. So Ethan has made his way back to the top after suffering a tough defeat in round 2. And we're trying to figure out if he's going to be able to outplay his opponent from this position. It looks pretty balanced still. There are still weaknesses for black. I mean, black remains on the defense with protecting b5 and e6, but maybe somehow we'll find a way to keep the position, to hold on to the position. Moving on to board 3, we know Jashit won it with a beautiful checkmate with a pawn here, so he is joining second place finishers. Vijay was trying to outplay his opponent after he dropped the pawn in d5, but I don't believe it's going to be very easy to do that. But who knows? There are ways for improvement for black. White is attempting to stabilize the pawn in a6 so that the knight can go to b4, put some pressure, and maybe somehow have the ability to get the pawn back. And who knows? I mean, the bishop generally is better than knights, but here, you know, the extra pawn is an extra pawn for now until you get it back. So I think black is attempting to bring the knight to c7, and then he should bring in the king too. Maybe f6 and bring in the king like this could be an option, and then rerouting one of the knights so that this bishop would be pushed away. It's not easy, but it's a potential plan of improvement. Board 5 finished in a draw. Let's see what's going on this board. So Alex was trying to find a way to improve, but may have dropped the pawn here. He could have repeated earlier, but he just dropped this h pawn. Was that wise? I'm not sure. I feel that if I were white, definitely not this. Do not play this blunder, because rook takes e3 and then you're going to lose. But I feel that the rook would come back somewhere here, and black will need to find a way to push c3, and it's not possible. Rook a3, there's bishop c5 trading off to a bishop endgame there. I believe white might have some chances to win. So it's difficult really to progress, and I would want definitely the rook behind the scenes, while these pawns will be the next goal to push forward to create a passed pawn. But bishop c5 was played, and okay, this is the current position. Well, why was the king e6 a blunder? Ah, because they just repeat. Okay, now white did play rook b5. And the question is, if we trade, what? We don't win this endgame, or should be? We should be winning because we are okay, maybe h5 first and then g4 g5. The bishop and the king will stop the c pawn, but white can create a further way. I think this is winning. We'll have two passed pawns. We'll win that one, and then we should be able to win this because it's the same color bishop endgames. White did not want to do that. The only way for white to win is definitely creating a passed pawn. There's no other way. This pawn is not gonna fall easily. So either trade rooks and create a passed pawn, or just push these pawns up. But it's much more difficult with the rook in d5 to actually push, because the rook covers the h5 square, so there's no real progress here, you know. So that's the small problem in the situation. But he's also getting a bit low on time, so that is that's going to be something he has to keep in mind. Playing faster will be helpful. So it looks like white has decided to finally play b4. That's created a weakness. And for some reason, Black decided not to take, because probably he thought that pawn will stay weak and might end up being captured after bishop c3. Something's gonna fall. So a rook b1 check was played, but now when you capture, it's about the same thing. Just you're down. You traded a pair of rooks, which generally the side who's up material wants to trade. So in a way, Black may not have done the right thing. So we're liking that that position for White. This is the game where Black was doing slightly better and still seems to be. That queen got trapped. Ouch! If you go queen h5, there's g6. So White was forced to give up the exchange. It's actually not an exchange; it's a full rook. Oh my goodness! All right, so Connor's on his way to win this one. Queen g4 was probably too much. The queen had to stay home with queen f2, and White may have survived here, I think. Very likely. Ah, sorry, I didn't catch up with the full. No, I did. That was the full game. Okay, so what have we had here? Oh no, Black just blundered the... Black just blundered... No, this cannot be it. Okay, there's some DGT errors on this board. That there's no way someone didn't capture the queen. Okay, I will ask about this one too. There's that's a bit too strange for the game to have ended that way. Likely some errors, because yeah, no, that's definitely not what happened. Okay, so Phineas won his game. We've already seen that. With the rooks being traded, Black has to be very careful. What happened? Why didn't Black play the move knight d6? Knight d6 covers the attack and controls pretty much every single square on the back rank. 2 squares with a knight, 1 square with a queen. There's no mate, and everything is covered. Black blundered a pawn, and now it's gonna be difficult. Also, I'm not sure we had to take, but okay, like knight d3 I like a bit better. Taking allows that queen to get out. Well, it's going to take time. This game will also, you know, require a little bit of time to improve, but it will be improved. Vias against Danda is definitely going in White's favor. White needs to choose what to win. I believe this one is in order. And we might be seeing the pawn march. That's going to be devastating for Black, for sure. Falcon won that game. Aww. Vladimir has lost. Sadly. Nakamura won, so I guess we have 2 champions in the under 1400. We have Yotam Doron Repa and Nakamura Louis sharing first place in the under 1400. So that's another result there. And that's about it. So we have how many games remaining? We only have 5 games remaining. So let's take a look at all of them step by step. First one was Ethan's. So they managed to trade the B pawns. And I see a red. So did he miss something here? Oh. Rook a4, big mistake. Allowing that pawn to be captured and this pawn. So now White is up a pawn. White is up a pawn. And apparently it has a very strong move, which is not knight f4. Because knight f4 just drops... maybe just drops the pawn. What about queen f3? Queen f3, queen f5? No? No? I love this. There's no way to stop queen f5. Queen enters in f5. This pawn falls. Knight comes in. This is looking very dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous. Knight f5 allows... I guess... it's a trap if you take knight back. Okay, I saw the trap. I didn't see it in the first place, but I saw it in the second place. That's okay. So activity looks nice for black here. And how to put additional pressure. Black wants to play rook b1. How is that move gonna be stopped? I hope for his sake he didn't blunder here. Because I'm having trouble understanding how rook b1 is going to be stopped in this game. The other remaining game was this one, where looks like Yang Shen was able to grab his pawn, but dropped this one, and now it might be even more difficult than it was before. Maybe the bishop had to be going here to keep the knights. Bishops are dominating pieces. You need to find the right squares to restrict the opponent's knight. The knight goes there. No worries. The bishop can go back to d4. But I think the king needs to make its way to the center. But the bishop does need to be on the kind of diagonal that it restricts knights. Trades generally are good, right? When you know you're in an endgame and you can, simplify things to make your life easier. But here, maybe you made it more difficult because it's two knights. It's easy to support past pawns, and it might be very difficult for him to save the game. But especially because they're getting super low on time. Kyle was doing much better after the trades of the queens. Black has 3 weaknesses, well, more like these two, a6 and c5. So I think the knight's gonna make its way all the way till d3. And then maybe we'll do something like this, or maybe we'll bring in the king. It takes time, but again, like, black is super passive and doesn't have any counterplay. Like, everything of white is well protected for now. So all we have to do is just have patience and slowly improve the position of the pieces to put pressure on the opponent. Aria's game was another one in progress after queen f8, right? Black dropped a pawn, but like I said, it was not gonna be easy for white to win this. Okay, this knight endgame, I don't know what happens. I think it should be a draw. So should black play g5 to try to trade anything that pushes here, maybe? Because originally I was thinking a6, but then maybe f4 could give white some winning ideas now. You don't want to be pushed back. You want to try to think how to go forward. And then this was another game that was on the board, but white is up a pawn and should start marching the central pawns. I mean, right? That is what we expect. I think that is what we expect. Okay, circling back to Ethan, he was able to somehow trade queens. So he ended up playing queen f3 here. And I guess rook b1 doesn't have any threat, so the queen covers the spot. So black decided to move the queen in front to threaten rook b1 and then infiltrate. Okay, knight e7, but he could have had queen f5 at this point. Does he have something? He forced the queen trades now. This game will... Okay. King g3. Plan to improve is bringing the rook on 5th rank, knight c6, and try to get the pawn. If he manages to do that, he'll have some chances to win. But if he doesn't, So he still has quite a lot to fight for, I think, in that position. Lots of moves being played in Aria's game. This doesn't help White. This makes sense. Oh, why didn't she play g4? I think the point would be to try to create a pass pawn, or maybe go g5 and then bring in the knight to try to get the g6 pawn and stay with 2 connected pawns. But in my mind, I don't want to give up this pawn because this keeps the knight passive. If you give it up, then it will be difficult for you to really have chances to win, even if you get 2 connected pawns. Yeah, look at that. Because that pawn is going to distract the knight, and then all black has to do is just sacrifice their knight for your 2 pawns. And that's about all it will take for the draw. So White found a way to trade the bishops. Okay, now he's winning a second pawn, right? 95, knight takes c4. Seems like it. And then again, those pawns will eventually have to march. Those pawns will eventually have to march. No news from Ethan's game. Black is finally bringing the king into the game. Okay. Good, VJ. You got it. You got it. Trading. Okay, if we trade a pair of knights, I think black is going to have an easy path to win now. We need a pair of knights. Off the board, that is. Okay, so Kyle has brought in the king to c2. That's a good thing. Now we need to put the knight in b3. That was the plan in the first place, right? We cannot put extra pressure here, but we can put extra pressure here. So regardless of what you do, knight b3 should be the next move being played by White to grab the pawn in c5. Once that pawn falls, then White can start marching their pass pawns that they've just created. So that's definitely something we want to keep in mind. For sure. No more changes in Aria's game, actually. .95 was a bit much. I think Aria's probably thinking, why did I do that? Because even if the knight restricts this one in a5 on these 2 squares, that's about all it does, and you really don't have time for something like this. I think. I mean, is knight somewhere else better? No, here or something. Maybe it's better. Black can start marching. And the knight will make its way, like I said, like this, I think. As long as black gets 2 pawns, that's pretty much the goal. Okay, knight e5, knight takes e4 happened in this one. Now that all of white's pawns are protected, it's time to infiltrate or put additional pressure on c7. Okay, trading the knights. There it is. There it is. Good, good. So now rook. I would play rook b1, not rook c1, because this is covered for now, and then we have the ability to go to b7. That's going to put pressure on 2 pawns. So it's definitely much better if you will, you know, go back to support or to protect that. Rook b7 just is gonna win that one, and then white can start marching the a pawn. There's no need to push these pawns. Everything is safe. And the nice thing for white in the position is that black doesn't have any activity. They, you know, with rook b1, we're taking over the only counterplay that black might even consider having on the b file, which is open. And you know, when you have rooks, you need to find a way to get them active on back behind the scenes on the back ranks, first rank, second rank in the opponent's territory. And here there's no way to do that. Going back to Ethan Guo's game. All right, the knights somehow got traded off. Oh, black traded by himself. Okay, this definitely helps because after e5, white will make black's rook passive. We can go here and try to take this one, but you do not want to trade these 2 pawns. Be very cautious about it. We do not want to trade them. We actually want to activate our own king. So that will be the goal. So he has to be careful. He doesn't want to trade them. If he can win this without giving that, sure, but otherwise, no. So probably black has to play here. So in case of a trade, this, I believe, is a draw. So we cannot do that. So, okay, let's see. Do we go king f2 or do we bring in the... Do we advance further? The thing is, if you advance too much all the way there, I put my king in front. And guess what's my next move? I can go back. And I can just sit and you don't have a progress because there's no way to bring in your king. And whenever you choose to make the trade, it's going to be a draw. So you have to be very careful on how you attempt the progress. Okay, check. Did black lose on time? I think black lost some time here. Okay. That's tough. But basically here, king f8. Ah, but king f8, we have time to do this. And white should be winning this. I need to think how we win, but we should win. I think. Yeah, it's actually kind of cute. Not like this. I mean, you may think you're winning this. If he goes here. Like this. However, oh, sorry, king g8. This is losing again, or maybe h6 first. It's losing, right? This is winning for white. But the drawing mechanism, where was I? The drawing mechanism here is g6. Important move to remember. So we are dropping the pawn because it's a check pawn. If you go back, we'll take, right? And although it seems that we're not on the right path, when g6 is played, we can play king g8 first. Keep the king in front of the pawn so you don't take the opposition. And when this happens, this is a draw. So after g6 check, when white takes, king g7, black puts white in Zugzwang. The king has to move back anywhere. We take, and this is a draw. So you have to be very careful on how you're going to attempt progress there. So I think we go here. Oh no, we don't go here. What am I talking about? Here, here, here. We go here, here. Like this. Very important. If you go there, we enter, and then we'll grab this, and then we'll go grab that. If you go here, we go here, we take the pawn, we leave, and then we promote. If after f6, black doesn't take, just say they go, I don't know, back or something, we can still take, and then we come here, and we've created this restriction. So we are approaching that pawn, easy peasy, and white is winning. You have to be super cautious about it, but this is a win. And as I said in the past, if you give yourself sufficient amount of time so that by the time you get to an end game, you will have the time to double check things, to be able to calculate, because calculation becomes very important in an end game, especially if it's a king and pawn one where you have to defend. If you give yourself sufficient time, you'll be able to save it. Well, there, unfortunately for black, there's no save. White was the one who was trying to figure out the way to win. And it looks like a few more games have finished. So, and one is about to finish. So we're just going to review those, and then I'm going to show you the remaining one. So this one of Kyle's has finished. And it looks like Kyle, after bringing the king all the way to c2, was able to bring the knight to b3, won that pawn, and then made its way with those two central pawns, won the piece, and black resigned. The other game of Arias finished in a win by white somehow, so I wanted to check it because I thought it was supposed to be a draw. Okay, black went with the knight possibly on the wrong spot. I thought this was a slightly better one, but how did we have a win here? So white played knight h4. Oh no, black must have miscalculated. There's no need. There's no need to rush. You can just go back. I mean, even like, yeah, there's no need to rush. You can just like go back, and if this happens, I think you can go here. And then push. I think poor Srivashan miscalculated and didn't realize the knight makes it on time. He probably, but I don't know how he forgot, because like there's various ways. Like there's also this check and this. There's knight d2, knight b3, and then there's knight d1, knight c2. It's probably the time. The time put pressure, and unfortunately he didn't realize the knight comes back to capture, and then it was over. Okay, that is a tough loss. And lastly, this game between Vias and Danda finished in white's favor. As we've seen, white was grabbing pawn after pawn after pawn, and in the end there were way too many pawns to stop. Okay, they're trying to be cute. Okay, he didn't want to play g6 yet. Okay, well, what kind of mate did he want to give a pawn mate or something? No. Okay, all right, sounds goody. So we have only one game remaining. I think the VJ game. Kazaria won, Ethan won, Kyle won, and VS won. So last one. The last one standing. We have the last one standing in this on this board 4 of the K-8 championship. And it's not standing anymore. Wait, what? Wait, white won? No, black won. The result is wrong. Wait, I'm confused. No, what is going on here? What is going on? Unless he lost on time. I don't know what happened, my friends. I have no idea what happened. Okay, still waiting on the issue on the 10th DGT board, so I guess we'll be back to this one to see what happened. Yeah, this one unfortunately did not get fixed. It looks a bit suspicious that, you know, in this position white played here and then didn't take the queen. So okay. Okay, I'm getting an answer. Looks okay from here. Okay. Really? Okay, so let me send a picture. I will send the picture. Maybe this is what happened. I don't know. It is possible. It is possible that okay, that there's something wrong. Maybe I need to refresh. I'm gonna refresh another screen and see if it is me, but I don't think so. Okay, I'm gonna go to another screen. Yep, I'm getting the same move, so no. So yeah, that game is problematic. And I believe VG won. Okay, I know it shows on the board here. I know on the board it shows that he lost, but I'm pretty sure he won. There's no way he lost this. So, what an interesting tournament this was. Whew. I guess we arrived close to the end of it. There might still be games in progress. It's only 5 p.m. local time. They started at 2. Okay, so they've been playing for 3 hours and 20 minutes. So maybe some of the other games are still in progress on site. I wouldn't know. All I know is that, you know, we're trying to wait and see what's going on with some of these results. But I will, as I'm waiting for the standings to be posted. I think it's gonna take a little bit of time for the standings to be posted. Yeah, nothing has been posted yet. We kind of know the winners though. So let's double check. So in the championship section, Brian Lin is the sole winner of the tournament with 7 out of 7. Now, going into the under 1700 section, we had two players who were tied with 5.5 points, and that was Nirvan Sivakumar and Vyas Omshankar. They had 5.5 points, and Vyas has won his game because they had played one another, right? So Vyas has won his game, so he is the sole winner of the competition. As unfortunately for him, Nirvan lost his game, and he finishes with 5.5. But Vyas is going to be declared the winner of the under 1700 section. Now, going into the under 1400 section, we had one player with 6 out of 6, and that was Liron. Going to that specific game. Unfortunately for him, Lee ended up losing this game to Yotam Doron Repa. So Yotam finishes with 6.5 points, and he's also joined by the other player who had 5.5 who won his game, and that was Louis Nakamura. So both Louis and Yotam finished shared second in the under 1400 rating division. I'm not familiar with the results in the others until they will be posted on the website. For those of you who are trying to figure it out, there's a standings. There's a link to the standings over there. So if you just click on that link and go to one of those sections that you're interested in, you'll be able to catch up with all of those games. Okay, so somehow the DGT messed up the board 10, I'm told, and we might not, we're not going to be able to know exactly what happened because the players have finished and left. But maybe, we'll see the results in the end, so we will know what happened in the end for that one. Okay, well, as we're waiting for the standings to show, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my favorite moments of this round. Do you guys have any final questions before I get into it? Because once I do, I generally stay focused on that. I generally stay focused on the game, and I don't. Actually, which game am I gonna choose? Ethan's game was not too bad. This was a nice one, though. This was a pretty nice one, by Jashit, as he was able to, take advantage of Black's king in the center. I thought that was a pretty good one. That game ended in a draw. Actually, what happened in this game? Also draw, right? White missed some chances to win here. This was a sad moment. This was a heartbreaking moment from the round as Black, played the move rook d2, totally forgot about his rook hanging, and he's played a really good game, and then touching the wrong piece is really devastating, I think. So I hope he doesn't feel too bad about the tournament overall. This was a nicely played game too, because it involved a lot of maneuvering and bringing the pieces. I was quite impressed with White's play. Look at that, like the king made its way all the way to c2 just to support the knight to go to b3, because he knew that with all of the pressure on every single square, there was no way for black to really defend. The rook was bound to stay here because anytime it would go to b7, that pawn was going to be captured. So this was definitely like a pretty good game from White standards. Oh, this was a tough one, I'd say, for White. He got his queen kind of trapped in g4. He had to sacrifice material, and then he stayed down with the rook. I mean, this was a tough loss for White. This was that game that we don't know exactly what happened. Phineas played a good game as well. Unexpected finish in this game between Arya Roy Chuduri and Shrivachan Kuchunrajan, because if White is trying to win in this position, White should probably try to play g4, right? G4, and then takes, and then play f5, create a passed pawn, try to get the king somewhat passive, and then find its way to to win this one too. And while chasing that knight away, then protect the f pawn so that that one eventually gets that one as well. But after this move, it just seemed like the game was gonna end in a draw, in my opinion. After knight b3, I think black would have just. I thought black would have just marched that pawn forward. Really. This doesn't work, right? Because there's a check, and then we take, right? You go wherever we take, and then black doesn't get to win with that pawn. White's king makes it in the box, but we don't need to allow that check, right? When we see that the check is coming, we can just move the king, and then if you try to go there, we can check you. I don't know exactly what the best check is, but probably here. And then we'll give this check to attack the pawn. You have to go here. We'll come right back. And black eventually will start moving the pawn. So it was definitely kind of tough to see that in this position, black rushed and dropped the knight in f1 for some reason and pushed a5, not realizing that white's knight, even if it's still far away, still makes its way down the board to capture the a pawn, and there's not so much to do. Vias was winning for quite some time here with all of the activity of his pieces. It was definitely a good game. This was a tough one. Must have been a tough one for Nirvan because he's played a pretty good game for a while. But then his isolated pawn had to suffer because of his isolated pawn. It was really it wasn't easy to come up with a way. I know it looks that White's king is going to be in danger, but it really wasn't. And yeah, the best thing he could have done, since White didn't take to actually make it much easier to win this queen endgame, the best thing he could have done is just make sure he avoided the potential trade of the queens. He unfortunately must have missed this idea with queen b4, and then yeah, there was no way to save this. Like I said, if king here, white enters. There are no moves for black to wait in that position, unfortunately. This was a tough endgame as well. I think maybe I'll focus on this one. We have some Sorry about that. We have some endgames that didn't have to turn out the way they did, so I think this is definitely one of them. And there was another king and pawn endgame that I showed that was it? No, it wasn't this one. I need to find it. Which other king and pawn endgame did we have that I was gonna show? So this was number. This is number 15, but there was another king and pawn. Was it? No, this was already lost. Does anyone remember which one it was? Ah, this was the one. I was making it up. This one I made it up. So, what video should I make? What recap should I make? Should I make a recap of the win of Brian's? Should I make a recap of the end game of Ethan's? From the moment that this is a win, to just kind of explain how the end game is won. Should I show this game, or should I go for the end game on board 15? Does anyone have any suggestions? Final suggestions of this. Final suggestions of the stream as we're waiting for the pairings to be put so that I can officially congratulate the winners. I see some of the standings. So under unrated is posted. Under 700 is posted. We have a player with 7 out of 7. Ooh, look at that! Alaniza Alex has won the game. The mom or dad of his was on stream. I don't know if they are still there, but I guess he's won, so they're probably celebrating now. Under 1100 we have the results, but we're still waiting for results for the championship under 1700 and under 1400 section. Okay, I guess it's up to me to choose my favorite moment. So well, I guess I'll make more videos. I'll make more editable material. Hopefully Brian will be happy or not. We'll find out. Okay. I need to be ready emotionally and mentally. Okay, let's do this. Round 7 has certainly brought some exciting chess, and there were a few favorite moments, so I'm going to go through them one by one just to make sure we get enough learnable moments, especially from endgames, because as many of you know, those are some of my favorites. This was a game that was played on board 3 of the under 1700 section, and we had Vina Yagaram Tarun playing against Apurva Gunanka Advitya. And the players were playing this rook endgame for a little bit of time until at some point white decided to check and now offer a rook trade. When you're trading off rooks and trying to go for a king and pawn endgame, you want to make sure you're calculating things so that you don't mistakenly trade off towards something that is not going to benefit you, right? So black in this position can just play king f5 and wait for the rooks to be traded in e5, yet black decided to take in e4, and that's okay. This is a draw anyways. King f5 would have been fine, but this is a draw anyways, even if white gets to create a passed pawn. But now it becomes a bit more important to be careful with the black pieces, because white actually does have a passed pawn, and that pawn is going to be supported and pushed forward by white. So king e5 was played, king f3, everything normal so far. White is attempting the entrance through g5, so of course we're going to play king f6, e5, king e6. Now if white chooses to go for the g pawn, this is going to be a draw, because all black needs to do is make its way to the corner and there's no way to progress. However, white decided to play this move, king e4, of course the natural way to improve, awaiting for black's response. And unfortunately for him, black ended up playing the move g5. This is a blunder, because now as white captures the pawn and black attempts to go for h4, white has the opportunity to place their pawns in a knight position from one another, which means the black king won't be able to capture either one of them. As for white, they have the king in the box of this pawn, so as this pawn advances, white manages to go grab it, while black's king is stuck. If they take, g7 will be played and white will promote. If they don't take and they play h2, king g2, that pawn is going to be captured on either one of those squares, and then white will make its way back with the king and win the game. The game continued with king e7, white brought in the king to take the pawn, and black attempted the best possible way to try to save the game by bringing the king to attack the g6 pawn. But unfortunately for Apurva, white was aware of the best possible move, which was e6. Keeping the pawns in a straight line when you have them one file apart from one another is definitely the right way to stop the opponent from attacking them. And now whichever pawn is going to be attacked, the other one would push forward, creating a restriction. The same thing would happen here. e7, creating a restriction of black's king, so white will be able to promote the next move. And that's why in this position after e6, black ended up resigning. So this was certainly a tough one to lose, in my opinion, because in this position, black has the opportunity to make a draw, but being precise is certainly important. So we have, again, the choice to go king d7 or king e7. So you have to understand on which one of those squares you can go to draw. King d7 is one of them. When you go here, king e7, and as white pushes the pawn, now you might notice black's king is in front of the pawn, but white's king, that's the important part. White's king stays on a diagonal where black is going to promote with check. So not just that, but also takes, h4, g6, h5, g7, h2, g8 queen, bam, check, thankfully for black, and then black is the first giving checks. Obviously, if the roles would be inversed and it would have been it wouldn't have been a check, then white would simply mate here. So king d7 is very important. If you're thinking that in this position king e7 works as well, you would be wrong, because now white is going to play the same thing, but the difference is now when you go king d7, e6, you have to get in front. King e5. Now, if you go backwards, the king will make its way and grab your pawns. And if you try to play g5, same as before, the king is not staying on a check. Very important to note that. And after this happens, h4, g6, h3, g7, h2, queen, h1 queen, checky, and white gets to mate. So there's only one way to draw in that position, and that is not king e7, but king d7. Not the typical way on how we would play a king and pawn endgame. Generally, we want to take the opposition, but here it's the opposite. And if white attempts to go to grab that pawn, no cause for alarm. We're coming right back, and we already know what happens if they go in that direction. So this would have been the drawing mechanism, but of course things would have been easier if black wouldn't have allowed white to actually create the pass pawn. Certainly hope you enjoyed this moment, because I've encountered a lot of king and pawn endgames in this tournament that unfortunately didn't finish the way they should. So this might be a good way of reminding ourselves to spend time. King and pawn endgames are, in my opinion, great examples or great ways to improve calculation. So could be something to follow along with. Okay, so that was one of the videos. We're gonna make another video, because why not? We can. We're gonna make another video. Round 7 was certainly one to look forward to, with one player leading the competition with 6 out of 6, and that was International Master Brian Lin. He was paired against women candidate master Arabella Feng, who was at the time 5.5 points, and this was definitely an important matchup for the standings, because whichever one of them was going to win the game, they would have become sole champions. Brian had the white pieces and started with e4, and the players followed not a very known line, I think, of the somewhat closed or French variation of the Sicilian, where white fianchettos the bishop, and then black develops normally, but at some point there will be a capture in c5 that would allow the creation of an isolated pawn. I feel the game went, in a way very naturally for both sides, up until a point where here, after knight takes and the knight's being traded, black developed the bishop in c5, which I thought was a natural move because it comes out with tempo. Brian chose this idea where he traded the queens really early in the game, and I wasn't expecting this, because although draw is sufficient for him to win the competition, I know he's the higher rated player of the two, and I personally would have chosen something maybe more aggressive, but he went for a cautious, and actually this is his style of play, in my opinion, based on what I've seen from this competition. And here suddenly we see the move bishop e3, and he's going for another potential trade, right? So with black, you have to think, what is the best way to maintain the position equal, because you are going to be struggling long term with the isolated pawn in d5. So I think black would have considered the capture, since, rook takes. I don't think d4 works because, you'll get traded, but okay, rook takes, black can maybe bring in the rook on the d file, maybe find a way to hide away with the king back there, and yeah, black is a bit more passive, but should be able to hold here. Arabella, on the other hand, chose to go bishop b4. The idea is nice because it pins the knight and threatens to double white's pawns and maybe win material, but I didn't quite like this because it allowed bishop d4, which blocks the isolated pawn, protects the knight, and places the bishop on a relatively good square, controlling both sides of the board, and now you're wondering why you didn't trade it. Black played the move rook h to e8. And while I like the placement of the rook on the open file, it is this pawn in d5 that's going to cause black some trouble, because white has the ability to put pressure, and the problem is black's king is still on the d file. Black's king needs to find a way out from there. I know it's good in an endgame to keep the king in the center, but unfortunately here, you cannot keep it there for too long. Rook e2 was played, and now black realized probably that having played bishop b4 was not wise and returned to c5, but this was somewhat of a waste of time. And I was thinking that, you know, maybe this was the expectation that if the trade was going to happen, rook d1, at least black gets the chance to maybe, you know, move the king over. I don't know if king c7, king c8, maybe switch over the rook and the position would be fine. Or maybe black thought that white was going to consider taking in f6, and then at least there'll be bishop pairs. I do believe this was probably the best move for white. But in the game, Brian just played the natural move rook d1. And it is here that unfortunately Arabella blundered. And this is a tough tactical blunder that we want to be aware of. And it all goes down to the fact that black's king remained in the center of the board. Bishop f5 was played. It's tricky to play this position, but I still believe that trading would probably have been the right thing for black. A6 seems nice to stop knight b5. The idea of king c6 seemed a bit scary to me because I didn't want the king to stay on the pin. I also consider king c7, but I don't think any of those moves really bring black sufficient you know, safety for the position. This was something else that I thought was nice and is probably the best of all of the choices that I've suggested, because in case trade happens and white considers to take there, at least black will find its way to counterplay with activating the rook. Now obviously we don't need to trade, but I think, you know, black, in order to try to not be much worse in this position, has to look for ways to trade the pieces and avoid dealing with the pressure on the isolated pawn in d5. So bishop f5 unfortunately was a blunder, and the way white took advantage of it was by capturing in f6. Now the d5 pawn is not protected anymore, and by taking there we're eliminating the only other piece that was protecting. Black captured in e2, and now knight takes e2. We're not in a rush to take in d5, the pawn stays there. And the problem is not just the fact that black loses the pawn in d5. Maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing because c2 is also weak. Black would stay with the bishop pair. But the problem is that unfortunately king e6 doesn't work due to knight f4 check, and then the bishop will be lost anyways. So this is the reason why now after rook takes f5, the game continued on a little bit with Arabella still trying to, you know, find a little bit of compensation by winning a few of these pawns. But very soon white was able to grab the remaining of black's pawns and got black's king into a mating net, and soon after rook c2 to stop the mate on c6. But now after bishop e4, the mate in g6 was unstoppable. So really beautiful way for Brian to convert his advantage, win the tournament with 7 out of 7. Last year in the Super Nationals, he finished in 2nd place, now wins the competition with 7 out of 7. Big congratulations to him, and you know, kudos for a great event, really beautiful games, and building the pressure in every single game to the point that eventually his opponents made mistakes and eventually he won. So keep up that great work, and looking forward to seeing more of his games in the future. That was another one. Should I make more or should I check? Okay, let me check if the standings have been put so I can share them with everyone. Okay, under 1700 standings are there. All right, so I can finally show all of the standings. And I need to not forget the team standings, because generally I do forget showing the team standings, and that makes me sad. All right, we'll start with the unrated section. All right, well, big congratulations to everyone taking part in this tournament. It was truly a thrilling event. I learned a lot. I hope people watching have had a good time with the commentary and have enjoyed it. Feel free to drop a follow to US Chess if you haven't done so yet on all social media accounts to stay notified when we go live here on Twitch, post on YouTube, and then of course social media. X and Instagram and Facebook are places where notifications about various announcements, tournaments, inside the United States, but also outside, some of the top players, what they are doing, and so many other things you can find out by following US Chess on social media. I want to take this time to congratulate every single one of the players competing in this tournament. All of you have done amazing. Even if you haven't scored as many points as you were hoping to, I think you should take it as an experience for the future and try to learn as much as possible. There are opportunities to play Grandmaster, to meet some strong players in the US on site, so hopefully you took advantage of that. And big thank you to the parents for making the time to bring all the kids to these tournaments. It's really inspirational for me, and it's great to see them all fight till the very end. All right, now looking for the standings. So in the K-8 unrated section, looks like we have one sole winner with 7 out of 7, and that was Adonis Landry. He is followed by 2 players, Owen Fisk and Luke Strong, both of them with 5.5, and quite a lot of other players with 5 points. Altogether, there were 41 players in this section, so that's pretty good. Pretty good for the unrated section. Under 700, one player won the event with 7-0, and that was Andrew Hodge from Texas. Congratulations. I guess Texas well represented in Round Rock. Second place, Gil Isaac with 6.5 points. And on third, there were a few players sharing third place, actually quite a few, until 12th place. That is quite impressive. Under 700. Nice section. 7 out of 7. All right. Under 900, again, we have one player with 7-0, and that was Alex Alanis from California. I think his mom or dad was in the chat, so I don't know if they're still there, but I know they were wondering what is going on. So big congratulations to Alex. Congratulations to Hamza Kedir with 6.5 points, and quite a few players with 6 points. Under 1100, Briseno Tiago from Minnesota, I think, finishes with 6.5 points on first place, and then a few players with 6 points in the under 1100. And now we're getting to the sections that we actually had games for, and we've seen some of these players playing. On the live boards. The winner of this... Wait, what's happening? I got confused because that is the championship section. Apologies, but I was like, what is going on? Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I was just looking at this and I was like, no, that's not correct. Okay. We got a problem with the standings. All right. Well... I was like, Brian Lynn? There was only one Brian Lynn. Okay, I don't know what's going on. I do not know what is happening. I do not know what's happening. Um, okay, under 1400 section. This is not the correct standing, so I'm sorry. We have to skip that. I think we already knew who won the. There were two players. There were two players, but they uploaded the wrong thing here. I hope they fix it. I think they will. So I'm just gonna remind you that the players under 1400 section that won the competition were Nakamura Louis and Yotam Doron Repa. Those are the players. Let me see if I show the pairings, if it's gonna show for the under 1400, because I don't know. Yes, it doesn't show perfectly, but let's see. The wrong wrong standings updated. It's always something has to happen, of course. Apologies about that. Okay, did we get it fixed? No, did not get fixed. Okay, no worries. No worries, my friends. All good. All good when it ends good. All right. So, congratulations to those two players. In the under 1700 section, Vyas Om Shankar won the tournament with 6.5. He's had a very nice win in the final round against Danda Adian Reddy. And finishing in second, shared second, Orlando Falcon, Ian Gagnier, and Tarum Vinayagaram. I try my best with the pronunciations. Hopefully they were good enough. Big congratulations to them. And now lastly, for the championship, I was hoping we're going to see one of the females finishing on top. Actually, what happened with Megan? Oh, she took a bye in the final round. I was wondering why I didn't see her play. So she took a bye in the final round, so she only scored 5.5 because she drew the previous round. Okay. So sole winner, the champion of this year's middle school championship, was international master Brian Lin Enming. Congratulations, Brian. 7 out of 7, brilliant play. Very very exciting to see. 3 players looks like finished with 6-0. Those are candidate master Karthi Jashit, Anand Vijay, and Ethan Guo. 2 players from California, 1 from Texas, and Brian from New York. These players have definitely shown great resilience and coming back, because all of them have lost at some point to one lower rated player, but that didn't let them, didn't stop them on the way. So I think that is something to learn from and definitely admire. I felt bad for Arabella. I feel like she's had a great tournament so far. I hope she's gonna continue her improvement, and we're gonna see her in future tournaments. Everyone else, big congratulations for their results. Last time I forgot to show the team standings, and I don't know if they uploaded the final one, but here it is. Can we see it pretty decently? I think so. All right, so it looks like Hunter College, elementary and high school, wins first place. All right, congratulations to Hunter College Elementary and High School, but this is middle school, so I don't know why it's called that way. Success Academy, also New York, so lots of the New York schools are finishing in top. Dalton finishes in third. Spear Legacy also finishes on top. And yeah, 5 schools from New York, and lots of New York and Texas schools. That was a bit expected, I gotta say, but great showing at these championships, and very exciting for everyone. I hope they go home happy with the end. Oh, actually, they show it in each. Wait a second. Wait a second. They have them separately for under 700 too. So different schools, one in each section, by the way. And you can find all of these in the standings. But it looks like Hunter, Success, and Dalton were the most represented schools in the country. With that said, I think we have come to the conclusion of this last nationals tournament in Round Rock, Texas. This was the final one of the three. We started with the high school, continued with the elementary, and now with the middle school. It's been great to be here. I want to take another moment to say thank you to all the US Chess staff and volunteers, as well as all of the tournament directors on site, as well as the DGT operators, and anyone else who was involved with the organization of the tournament. I hope everyone had a great time. I'm going to I've missed everyone on site, but it was great to spend the time here with everyone. These videos are going to be posted later on US Chess YouTube page, so if you missed anything, you can always replay my commentary. Hopefully I haven't said anything upsetting, and there's learning opportunities always. That is my goal. Big thank you to the sponsors: Silver Knights, GT Anywhere, and Invisalign. It's great to see more companies interested in chess and supporting young talent. So hopefully we'll see more of this in the future. I haven't had the chance to see many posts about the grandmasters on site, but a big thank you to Julio Sadorra. I don't know if anyone had the chance to actually win against him, so if you did, I'm going to be looking on social media for posts of those who did have some chances to win against him. We also had International Master Tatev Abrahamyan, many times Olympic team member and top finisher in the US Championship. Recently got her International Master title. Women International Master Luciana Morales, and the first US Chess Ambassador, Women Grandmaster Jennifer Shahade. So I'm sorry I wasn't there. A big thank you to the Girls Club Room. I heard there was some fun stuff happening there. And yeah, if I missed anyone, I apologize, but hopefully I haven't. Lastly, I want to remind all of you that the next US Chess tournament that's going to be organized is the US Open. It takes place in Michigan. I should have pulled up the the US Open, but I think there's a I should have pulled it up. There's a command. Let's see. Let's see if it's still there. It's not. No worries. I'm gonna pull it up. One moment. Okay, so check out the US Open. You can find it on the main page of US Chess, and you're going to have the opportunity to compete against some of the strongest players. The top finisher at the US Open qualifies for the US Championship. It's definitely the place to be. It's a beautiful location in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The registration is opened. There are side events, quads, 7 days of chess, August 3rd till 9th in Grand Rapids. If you haven't done so yet, or if you're considering it's the right place for a vacation, for meeting some top players, and just basically a week of fun. So that will be the next US Chess organized tournament. With that said, I certainly hope you've enjoyed everything. Thank you again to everyone, and looking forward to seeing you, all of you, again very soon. I wish you a wonderful rest of this Sunday, and take care, and see you at the next US Chess event. Bye, everyone. Congratulations to all